high drama feeling low over the plays that we saw? Well, we certainly were with Abby Rosenbrook's Low Country. It's a story of an unlikely pair, a sex offender, David, and a desperate female, Tally, who just wants to get pregnant already. Paul is David's sponsor and has given him a place to live, a job as a line cook in the Waffle House, and is probably David's only friend. For some bizarre reason that is never made clear, Paul wants David to date women to practice not having sex with them. Paul suggests he might even help get Dave's chances to see his 8-year-old kid again in a couple of months. From the get-go, David is lying to Paul over the phone, saying that he is meeting the date for a picnic in the park. He is by no means allowed to have her over to his apartment. From the minute Tally comes to the door, she very unsubtly tries to seduce David. He is trying to resist her as he doesn't want to lose his chances to get visitation with his kid. Will he give in or be a good boy? It wasn't made very clear to me what exactly David did that got him arrested and wearing an ankle bracelet until recently. When Tally quizzes him about what kind of sex predator he is, his answers indicate he wasn't an icky one, like child molester or rapist. This misunderstanding allowed me to look upon David in a more favorable light, until my friend who came with me explained he was a basketball coach who had inappropriate texts with one of his high school students. I really disliked this playwright. I hated her previous one at the Atlantic called Blue Ridge. She doesn't know what to do with her characters or how to end a play or even write a crystal clear plot. The poor actors did the best they could. Let's hope they get to act in something better that is more worthy of their talents. Again, I'm happy for the actors, I'm happy for the play, so it gets a mixed face.
Gilbert and Sullivan's Pirates, the Penzance musical, adapted by Rupert Holmes, is set in New Orleans in 1880. Frederick, who spent 12 years in apprenticeship with pirates, will be freed at midnight when he becomes 21. Following this, he plans to join the police and do everything he can to defeat the pirates. He's very much a man of honor. Ruth, his nanny, who has joined the pirates, hopes he will marry her, but instead, Frederick feels that she tricked him by never letting him know there are younger and beautiful women. The Pirate King, wonderfully sung and beautifully, acrobatically performed by Ramin Karimloo, hasn't been a successful cutthroat because he has a soft spot for orphans, which everyone knows about, and his foes claim to be orphans, so he can't do anything to kill them. A recent arrival in town is Major General Stanley and his many daughters. The pirate band wishes to marry these girls. Frederick becomes romantically involved with the boldest and most beautiful daughter, Mabel. The Pirate King wants to kill Major Stanley because the king's father died while a captive to the general. Will romance win out? This is a big production with almost 20 performers singing and dancing on stage. The dances are always precisely and amusingly performed. My favorite dance number had the pirate band dancing and kicking in unison like the Rockettes. David Hyde Pierce stops the show with his brilliant rendition of the rapid-fire patter song, I Am the Very Model of a Modern Major General. This is pure entertainment at its best. The logic is rather quirky, but the results are delightful.
Yes, and it had an incredible cast, not just Ramin Karimloo and David Hyde Pierce, who I just adore beyond anything, and Jinx Monsoon as a nanny, but Samantha Williams played Mabel, and Nicholas Barash, who we've known since he was 17, is perfect as Frederick, who was born unluckily on leap year. And it I loved it because New Orleans is a very good place for it. But my one caveat is they changed some of the songs, and some of them were like shortened or cut out or had weird orchestrations, and that was a bit jarring because I just love Pirates of Penzance, and you can always update the modern major general pattern to go on with what's going on today. So it's always very amusing. And David I. he also played the part of William Gilbert or Sullivan. So in the beginning, Gilbert and Sullivan are there to kind of set things up. So that was kind of cute. I mean, I love Rupert Holmes ever since Drood. So I mean, I'm giving this a happy face minus. It's very colorful.
And I'm giving it a happy face.
Douglas Lyons' Beau the Musical, with music by Ethan D. Pochar and Douglas Lyons and lyrics by Douglas Lyons, is about Ace Baker growing up with Raven, a single mom, with no mention of her family until a fateful phone call. Ace is having a tough time of it in middle school, where he is continuously bullied by Ferris, who calls him a faggot every chance he can get. Daphne comes to Ace's rescue and they become lifelong friends. At home, Ace has to deal with her mom's boyfriend, Larry, who is super annoying to him as he is constantly calling him fella. Everything changes when Ace discovers he has a grandfather, Beau, who is his mom's dad that she won't ever talk about. Soon they develop a special relationship. Beau is the first one to put a guitar in Ace's hand and set him on the path to becoming a musician like he was. And in flashbacks, we get to meet Dennis, a friend of Beau, so we meet his BFF too. What did Beau do to get his wife Leanne to take Raven to leave and never look back? This was a down-home, upbeat musical with a great downbeat. The band turned into the characters, so not only could they sing, play instruments, but they could act up a storm as well. Unlike the gimmicky John Doyle, this made sense. This dealt with so many important issues, but in a very entertaining way, with some real kicks and some nice touches that could tug at your heartstrings while they were plucking strings. If I could sing, I would be singing their praises. Major happy face.
At New York City Center, Stage 2, you could see New York Theater Company presenting a revival of Sophie Treadwell's Machinal, directed by Amy Marie Seidel and choreographed by Madison Hilligross. This historically important 1928 play was inspired by convicted murderess Ruth Snyder. Here, Helen, an indifferent stenographer with beautiful hands, marries her boss, although she cringes whenever he touches her. She got married in part to help support her mom, who discouraged any hopes that Helen had of finding love. This excellent production is brilliantly choreographed. The movement makes the office workers' routines seem as breathtaking as the machine-inspired choreography of Busby Berkeley and the Rockettes. The most astonishing choreography is performed by tap dancers Veronica Simpson and Michael Vare. Helen is sexually awakened years after her marriage by a lover who has killed two men. She ends up killing her husband, like Ruth Snyder. Casting against traditional gender roles for couples helps make this production of Machinal seem quite contemporary. This is a wonderful production of a historically important American play. I give it a major happy face.
Jethro Compton's theatrical version of The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance will see both familiar and quite different from John Ford's 1962 film From Dorothy M. Johnson's Story. Ransom Foster, who's been beaten up thanks to Liberty Valance, is rescued by Burt Barracoon, who dumps him in Hallie Jackson's saloon. The marshal is too scared of Liberty to do anything against him. Ransom, who's a book-learning fella, decides to stay and become the local school teacher. He teaches Hallie and Jim, the Reverend Malston, a young black man who was raised by Hallie's white family. He's the only family member she has left. A black man learning to read doesn't sit too well with Valance, and trouble soon ensues. So, who does shoot Liberty Valance? There's a bit of a love triangle between Burt, Ransom, and Hallie. Who will she fancy? Can a Negro in 1910 be treated with the respect he deserves? The best scene in the play is a verbal confrontation between Valance and Ransom that precedes the inevitable shootout. While Valance realizes the end of the old Wild West is inevitable, he is intent on profiting from lawlessness for as long as possible. Although he only appears in 2 scenes, Derek Cheriton as Valance nearly steals the show from the other members of this fine cast. Leighton Samuels Ransom is more arrogant than Jimmy Stewart was in the film, but he is still likable. The story and the characters in the play are very clear, so familiarity with the film is not necessary. Racial prejudice is a stronger element in the play, and discussion of guns is more pronounced. A good Western is always welcome, but this one seems especially relevant now. Happy Face. And that was Mark's review because I had to leave in the middle of this due to my vertigo, as there were these sconces with flickering lights, the whole thing. But I saw half of it, and I agree. I agree with this, with the Happy Face. So the half that I did see, like this, and with sunglasses and trying to see it and closing my eyes, I still could tell this was a good play. So yeah, go see this. It's really, especially if you like Westerns. Hello, here we are with playwright Robin Rice with her play, This Dream Has Teeth, and the director, Kenny Marshall, who I have known forever from The Fringe, with Gerard Bogart, who did Jack and the Beanstalk when Elfie was a kid. And then he was in Bill Squire, my college buddy's Top of the Heap. I mean, you've been an actor, you've been a director, you are a Renaissance man. So tell us about now This Dream Has Teeth, and which do you prefer, acting or directing or both?
Wow, Ava, that's a heck of an introduction, I have to say. I hope my head doesn't get swelled. It's funny. I love both. I love acting and directing. And it's funny, as I've gotten into my 40s, I tend to do them back to back. I've just been very lucky that way. So I'm directing Robin's show, and then I'm turning around and acting in a musical immediately after this that starts in August. Yeah, but I love them both. I love them equally. I love storytelling. I love all facets of it. I think it has to do a lot with my education. I went to a program that I was like a kid in a candy store. They basically let you do anything related to theater and learn everything related to theater that you wanted to learn. So I learned, set building, costuming, stage management, theatrical management. And then, of course, the acting and the musical classes and the dance classes as well. I can still tap.
Where was all this? Where was this wonderful place? I want to go there.
Sadly, it no longer exists. It actually closed. They had trouble. They actually had financial issues. But the theater was the Greer Garson Theater Center, which was built by, I don't know if you all remember Greer Garson, the Academy Award-winning actress.
Please, Random Harvest is my favorite tearjerker.
Yes, Miss Miniver is actually one of my favorite Greer Garson movies. But this was at College of Santa Fe, which was in Santa Fe, New Mexico, which is where Greer lived with her husband Buddy, who actually built the library on campus. And then the College of Santa Fe became Santa Fe University of Art and Design after I graduated, and I graduated from there in 1999. And then Santa Fe University of Art and Design, I believe they closed their doors about 6 or 7 years ago, and there's been a lot of people rallying to try to save the Greer Garson Theater from being, completely demolished.
You can't have enough theaters.
I completely agree with you on that, Ava. But it was a really great education. I got to work with Carol Burnett while I was there. She co-directed me in Once Upon a Mattress my junior year. She was one of the big forces that, was very encouraging to me when I was younger, that told me to go to New York and really pursue this.
So I have Carol Burnett to thank for you.
She was a big driving force when I was younger. She basically gave me the courage to do this because I wasn't sure how I would fare when I came out here to New York. Big city, lots of competition, and we all know theater's hard.
I feel I should say here that Kenny's acting, all that experience, is not like separate from his directing. It's all used. It's all a part of it. Oh my God. The last rehearsal, he was working with one of the actors. who is less experienced than the others. And it was wonderful just watching him, the care and the knowledge that and the empathy that went in, understanding her. He's a very, very empathetic guy, and he takes care of the actors like no director I've ever seen. And he brings all this knowledge that he got for all these years of acting into directing. He never says, you have to do it this way, or this is how it should be done. And one of the cast members said the other day that these are the most delightful rehearsals he's ever been in, and he's got a lot of experience. And everybody was saying, yes, yes, it's an absolute joy to work with Kenny.
Yeah, well, I really feel like the rehearsal process needs to be a safe space. That's really important, and I feel like actors can't give 110% if they don't feel safe. So that's really important. So all of my rehearsal, the whole entire time we've been going, every single rehearsal, I always do a check-in, especially now with everything going on politically. You could read the news and that would be enough to make you spiral. And then you come into rehearsal and then, actors are very empathetic, kind, very feeling people. And so, whether they know it or not, they've from reading that news feed and then getting sad about it, they could very well easily bring that energy into rehearsal.
Well, it's funny. I just came from the New York Historical Museum. There's a lot of exhibits going on, but one of them was you could write out, what's your wish for America? I wrote, get rid of Trump, get rid of the Republican Congress, get rid of the Republican Supreme Court, really make America great again. I put it up and then I read the others, and a lot of the sentiments were exactly like mine.
That's what I've heard.
Alone there. But what is this Dream Has Teeth about? We're talking about rehearsals and everything, but what are you rehearsing them in?
Well, it's basically about these three women that have, they've known each other their entire lives. They've always been there for each other, but this is, 420 BC in Greece. And so, it's a very difficult time, and they all have strengths. One is an amazing artist, and another, she is incredibly intelligent, and she can basically think 3 steps ahead of any man. And then one of the other women, she is incredibly athletic, and she can run faster than any man.
But these are all big no-nos.
They have to keep these talents that they have hidden. And the consequences, the stakes, if they're found out, are incredibly high. If they're found out, and so that's honestly what it's about. But it's also about using your power, using your voice, which I think is really important right now in 2025. Which is why I wanted to do this show, because I think it mirrors what's going on right now. But using your power, your voice, and resisting. So that's pretty much what it's about. And along the way, there are a lot of laughs, and we have a great cast, and it's a really lovely show. I'm really proud of it. And also, I love Robin's writing. I love directing Robin's writing. My background is musical theater as an actor, but her writing to me, even though it's a play with no music in it, it feels musical. Her work always does to me. I feel like I'm looking at a score instead of a script.
Well, thank you very much for coming, and I can't wait to go see the play. It sounds delightful, like you guys are. So thank you very much. Bob Martin's Boop the Musical, with music by David Foster and lyrics by Susan Birkenhead, thrust cartoon Betty Boop into the colorful real world of 2025. Betty is exhausted from her life of never-ending filming in various costumes and careers and doesn't even know who she is anymore. Her Grampy is an inventor. He's created a machine that can take a person into the real world, but warns Betty against it, as it can destroy everything if she goes there. Pudgy the dog barks Grampy up, but Betty doesn't listen. She sneaks into the machine while Grampy and Pudgy are sleeping. She ends up at a Comic-Con where her being dressed as Betty Boop is quite normal. She runs into a Betty Boop fan, Trisha, who kindly takes her home to her Aunt Carol, who is helping manage the campaign of Raymond Demarest, who is a real sleaze bucket for mayor. How timely is that? Dwayne is Trisha's older brother, who Betty had previously met while bumping into him at the Comic-Con. She was quite taken by his blue eyes. He's a jazz trumpeter, but works as an Uber driver to make money, while Trisha is a talented artist. Grampy and Pudgy enter the real world and run into an old friend, Valentina, delightfully played by Faith Prince, while searching for Betty to bring her back. Will Grampy and Pudgy succeed? Will Betty be able to leave her newfound friends behind? This was a rollicking, grand old-fashioned musical with splashy tap numbers from Jerry Mitchell and clever costumes from Greg Barnes. Jasmine Amy Rogers was a revelation as Betty Boop. She had that can-do spirit and knew how to take care of herself. And Stephen DeRosa as Grampy was endearing and Pudgy was adorable.
I looked at it from a different perspective. It was very entertaining, but it certainly played to its audience, which I assume are New York City tourists. You know, these are uncertain times, and nothing sells better in uncertain times like nostalgia. But Betty Boop, what do you do with Betty Boop in the 21st century? Is she the ultimate Me Too gal in a world where, you know, studio executives would chase her around the office? They address that in playful ways, not in the, you know, again, this is a musical. You're not going to get deep, although you do have plays like Carousel, which address harsh issues. You have all the archetypes, the corrupt politician, everyone played over the top because, again, Betty Boop is a cartoon character. You have, of course, the 20th century casting against, I wouldn't say casting against type, but still a colorblind casting. And I was thinking about that in terms of Jasmine Amy Rogers. And she was just, this role was written for her. Her look, her style, she was over the top. And well, over the top and in a way that actually succeeds. There was marvelous use of the ensemble. I really enjoyed how everyone got a chance to shine. There was one actor, very tall, reminded me of Jeffrey Holder, a Lawrence Alexander, who stood out. Marvelous work all around, very entertaining. One of the interesting things was, again, the jazz angle just reminded me, it seems sort of borrowed from La La Land. Did it strike you the same way?
No, to me it was just old-fashioned musical with lots of tap dancing and perky, happy people and, you know, villainous bad guys and, you know, good and fun, you know, actors like Stephen DeRosa and Faith Prince. And I mean, and the supporting characters were really good too. I just enjoyed it immensely. I mean, I'm giving it a happy face and I'm sorry it's closing.
I would definitely give this a happy face.
Mark Hantoot's Wesley, with Scott Steidle's music and lyrics and Mark Hantoot's additional lyrics, is based on Stacey O'Brien's memoir, Wesley the Owl, the remarkable love story of a bird and his girl. Casey is cleaning up in a basement lab where the scientists are studying owls at Caltech, which she is using to pay her bills and college tuition. Her real passion is music. She is in a band with the Roomy Willow. They perform and meet Zane, who has taken quite a fancy to Casey. He thinks she is a phenomenal singer and wants to manage her band and sing with them. But everything changes when Dr. Penrose gives Casey a newly born injured owl with a broken wing. He isn't expected to live long. She just has to look after him until he dies and write a journal and document everything. The problem is that she falls in love with Wesley and loses her friends and career tending to the barnyard. And how? There was a constant onslaught of generic songs. The owl puppet was adorable until it was turned into a real person who interacted with Casey. They had conversations and morphed into this love story that wasn't poignant as it was meant to be, but downright creepy. They should have kept Wesley as a puppet. I'd like to read the memoir now, as I bet that would tug at my heartstrings, which this never did. However, I did admire the gorgeous singing voices of this talented young cast. It was like watching a college production where you know they will all go on to have splendid careers. I was particularly impressed with Christopher Kirby Saunders, who played Dr. Pembrose. He had this deep baritone. I could listen to him sing for hours. Sorry to say this, but this did not take flight with me. Mixed face minus. And now for our newest reviewers, Sarah Krasnow.
Great. So, to add on, as Eva said, the voices in this show were excellent. What's baffling is that such professional voices were lent to such amateurish writing. I'm also quite curious about the journals on which the show was based, as they seem to barely factor in. We start with a narrative that pits science against art. Casey gives up her music career to care for Wesley the owl. And when we're later privy to Wesley's inner monologue, the whole arrangement resembles an abuser demanding 100% of his spouse's time and attention. I don't know why an owl would stand in for a domestic abuser. I also agree that the music was generic and its tone demanded that the audience take the material seriously. As Casey sacrifices her professional life for Wesley, as Wesley goes from puppet to human and sings his domestic abuse song, as we watch a tenor take longer and longer jumps across the stage, he's trying to fly, surely the music could have winked at the audience, admitting the silliness of it all. But as it turns out, the project here is one of rhapsodizing. In the end, all strife is forgotten as Casey extols the gifts that caring for Wesley has given her. There's not a hint of regret as she retraces the joys of their life together. Apparently, having taken copious notes about Wesley's growth, this detail is tossed in for the finale number. She's contributed invaluable insight to the field and apparently succumbed to science after all. Kudos to the singers, actors who truly committed to every moment. Your voices will take you far and will let you demand better material. Mixed face minus.
Next show is going to be July 26th, and here's a couple of things to do beforehand. Black Eye, a daring new production, is at the Moore Jackson Community Garden in Woodside, Queens, and then it's at Battery Park from July 18th to the 20th. This show called Thank You, Don Ameche is going on July 13th. Breakin's going on to July 26th. And we lost three giants in the theater. Mark Brokow, the director, Richard Greenberg, my favorite playwright, and the rockinest person in the universe, Diana Oh. We'll talk about more and everything on the next show.